Man, have you guys ever wondered how the best marriages seem to have the happiest individual people in them? Those people that are just continually dedicated to growing, becoming a better person, trying to be that 1% better every single day. Those people who truly do set the tone in their relationship by individually working on themselves, but then also being able to work on their marriage at the same time, which is such a critical component to having a healthy, thriving marriage. Better yet, when you and your spouse can get on board with what we're going to talk about today, the things that you can do in the relationship that you can create can be absolutely legendary. Look, guys, welcome to Legacy Driven Marriages podcast, episode number 51. I'm Walt McKinley. I am here with my beautiful wife and my partner in crime, Stephanie McKinley.
Hey, everybody.
Today's episode is focused on exactly what we were just talking about, those questions that I gave you on why it's so valuable to do the necessary work on yourself to have a happy and thriving marriage. A lot of times we talk about what you need to do in your marriage, but this is about what you need to do individually to create something really special long term. And look, guys, whether you're married or not, you got to do this individual work we're talking about today. As always, we're going to give you some very tactical level things that you can start doing right now today, as soon as we're done, to start to move yourself forward. But before we really get started, we would love for you to hit that subscribe button on our podcast so you don't miss an episode. Share this with somebody who you know can use a conversation. Maybe you share it with your spouse. I don't know. Maybe you share it with your best friend. And then also reviews matters, guys. I don't know. I don't know. I can say that. Reviews matter a lot. And so please, please, please go give us that 5-star review, whether you're on Spotify or Apple or YouTube or wherever you're at listening to this. Please go give us that, because it does help elevate our podcast and get it in front of other people looking for a relationship podcast to create stronger bonds. So let's dive right into this episode, because I got to tell you, the amount of individual work I've had to do in my own life on myself
Don't we all?
has been tremendous, coming from where I started from, getting triggered and reacting emotionally consistently when I was younger, and getting to the point now where I can take things maybe a little less personally, or even if I take them personally, respond to the emotion versus reacting with visceral anger and using my words to hurt somebody instead of using my words to build somebody, and then figuring out how I can use my words to even build myself. So it's taken a lot of years of personal growth and really leaning into these moments in my life when I just didn't show up very well, in order to be who I am today and where I'm going tomorrow and where I'm going to end up on my last breath, because the growth never stops. So I can't wait to get into this one.
Yeah, I think everybody has to do, we all need growth. Everyone needs growth. I don't care who you are or how perfect you think you are. We all need growth.
And if you don't think you need it the most. I'm just keeping
This
it real.
is true. You speak the truth. Yeah, I talked to Walt about this topic today because we're at the start of the year and we're sitting down to everybody. This is the time when you're like really looking at achieving goals and creating change in your life. And what a better time to focus on yourself improving. And so this topic kind of goes right along with that. But it is the thing that when Walt and I were in the hardest part of our marriage, and we went to a conference, and we feel like it was the catalyst that saved our marriage. Can't say it was the thing. I mean, a lot of times I say it was the thing that saved our marriage. Technically, I can't really say that because that is not a magic pill. Nothing, there's nothing that's just going to fix your marriage just from going to it. It takes a lot of personal work.
But it was like the rocket fuel. That's what I compare it to. Going to that conference with where we were at in our marriage, how broken we both felt, the individual work we needed to do. I did feel like, because they gave us tools, which is why we're so big on giving you guys tools on the podcast. Because
That's why I
gave us
said
tools.
catalyst.
It's like the rocket fuel to just propel us forward faster than we would have if we would have just been figuring it out on our own.
Right. But it did start, it planted the seeds for us to realize that we both needed to do individual work first and then come together as a couple and work on things together also. We needed to do both. And that was something that was kind of eye-opening from that conference for us. And I hope it will end up being eye-opening for you also, that it is exactly that. It's not all just couple work. There's a lot of individual work that has to be done kind of in conjunction with working on your marriage.
Well, I feel like the more individually you work on yourself, especially if your spouse is doing the same thing and you're both on this journey of growth together, the more you work on yourself, naturally, that's going to bleed over into a really good way into your marriage
Mm-hmm.
versus you're not working on yourself and all you're doing is reacting emotionally to each other and being angry with each other, resentful and saying hurtful words to each other that you can't take back ever, right? But some things you can't take back at all once you say them. But man, when you can really focus on that individual aspect of how am I showing up in my relationship? How do I actually want to show up? And then what kind of places do I need to heal on my own so I stop acting this way? And man, turning that mirror on yourself is tough sometimes.
Well, I gotta say, so now there's 3 big marriage conferences we've two we've attended and listened to the speakers, and then one we just went through was actually more of a hands-on group exercise, like 14-week marriage
Yeah.
workshop. And all of those workshops, every one of them, talked about how you have to focus on yourself as an individual because you're the only person that can control you. You're the only person you can control. You can't control your spouse or what they do or how they act. The only person you can control is you. So it takes that focus off of, because if you talk to people who are struggling in their relationship, and we all know people who are.
Maybe
Some of
it's
us
you.
are, yeah, the one that is, and every one of them. What do you hear? The person is blaming their spouse. They're saying, "Oh, my husband never does this," or "My wife is always doing this," and they never talk about what they brought to the relationship or how they contributed. You only hear about the blame of the other person. And so one of the first things every marriage conference will address is to look at yourself. They don't want you to go through listening like, are they paying attention? Are they getting this? Are
Yeah.
they taking notes? Because we all tend to think it's our spouse that's the problem. And we only focus on our spouse when we actually need to sit down and look at ourselves, which is really hard to do. And it's really hard to do that in an unbiased way where you're not letting your feelings get in the way. And, there's a lot of blind spots we have as individuals on ourselves.
You know, it's crazy too. To me, when you look at the statistics, it makes a lot of sense. First marriages are ending at around, I see everything from 40% to up to 52%. But because people as individuals don't work on themselves, if their relationship doesn't work out and they get divorced, second marriages end in divorce 78% of the time, and third marriages end in divorce 86% of the time. But why is that? Because those people who continue to get married never stop to say, what do I need to do in order to have a healthy relationship? And
Right, they've always blamed the other person instead of, they never stop to look at what did they contribute.
well, because what's easier when we struggle too, it was easier for me to put the magnifying glass on you and look at all the ways you didn't show up and how that made me feel. I wasn't even at that point really willing to put the mirror on myself and say, how am I showing up and what am I not doing in my relationship that's maybe causing you to react in that way or pushing you away, versus just saying, hey, all you're doing is pushing me away and not giving me the love that I want. It is a truly game changing dynamic for your life when you can take a look at yourself individually and start to just peel back the layers that are going to happen. Because you said it, this isn't a magic pill. People want 7-minute abs, they get rich quick. Everybody wants something so fast. We live in such a microwave society right now. But the people who have success, whether it's in marriage or anything else, it's the people willing to do the most work in this case on themselves, and be the most consistent and be willing to do it for a long duration in order to reap the results of that small seed you talked about that you planted.
Yeah. Well, even, I've even talked to couples who have gone to therapy. Walt and I have never actually gone to therapy where we had a counselor talk to us, but we've done
Probably should have.
mostly Christian marriage conferences. But people I have talked to who have gone through therapy have told me that, again, usually the counselor will tell them they start with working on you individually before they ever address what's going on in the marriage. And they try to figure out what it is that's happening with you. That's because it really is most of the time, both people are bringing something
Yeah.
that, they don't most of the time even realize what it is, but you're both contributing. So, and it's cyclical. It's like once it starts, like you get into a cycle of, once one person says something that hurt the other person, then you get into this cycle of just hurting each other. And versus where if you had a conversation about it and worked through it and there was an apology or even just a reset, then you could be in this good cycle where you're helping each other and you're growing each other and you get in this really great thriving cycle that's not, being destructive and telling the other person what they're not doing and all of that stuff.
It's like the insanity cycle. You're just doing the same thing. You're arguing over the same things. You're saying the same things to each other. You're telling yourself, I'm communicating with them, but they're not picking up what I'm putting down, and I'm over it.
Right. And what's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So you're in this insane cycle where you're expecting there to be something different.
Some magic change is going to happen.
Think there's going to be some change in your spouse when really maybe you're the one who needs to set the tone for the change. And when you get in this thriving cycle, it really has to do with one, the individual needs to take responsibility and ownership for themselves, both ways though. And what I will say is sometimes somebody needs to step up to the plate and be self-aware enough to know and invested enough to know and committed enough to know that they need to be the one to really move the ball forward first. Then hopefully their spouse follows. Either way, you're ahead of the game by doing that.
Yeah, a lot of times we're waiting for the other person to do it. When if we just did it ourselves, we'd see change happen faster.
Or the other person's trying to change, but maybe you're thinking that the change isn't really going to happen because you've been there, done that, got the t-shirts and all the things before, and you're waiting for their shoe to drop when really they don't even got shoes on. They're trying to just walk pure barefoot on the sand with you and be loving. And meanwhile, you're over here thinking that everything's going to turn negative. And if you're seeing us on YouTube, our dog just came in from outside. Okay, Lucky.
Lucky.
The dog just came in from outside. He just ate, went outside, and now he's full of excitement. And so if you're on YouTube, you got to see his 10-year-old graying face, our baby boy. So what I love is there's always opportunities to get better. There's always opportunities to do something different. There's always opportunities to continue to elevate yourself. And until your last breath on this earth, we should all be focused with that mindset because, like I said in the beginning, we all have opportunities to get better.
Yeah, so I wanted to share with you guys a story. This is something we heard at the marriage workshop we went to. It was Stronger Marriages, and it's a couple, Trey and Lee, and he was a pastor. They now run marriage workshops, but he told a story about, I think it was a couple he was helping, and the wife came to him and said she was done. She's like, I've had enough. I'm done. My husband won't change. This just isn't going to work. And
I've done everything I can, put all my effort in. He's willing to give none. So I'm just finished.
And so she said, but I really want to make him realize what he's losing. And I just want to make him, realize he just lost the best woman he could have ever had, and kind of to that effect. And so the pastor's like, okay, I got something for you. He's like, so what I want you to do is for the next 30 days, I want you to love him like you have never loved him before. I want you to do everything that he, always wants from you, and just that there's no way he could love you anymore. You're going to do, he's like, I know that right now that seems like impossible, like, because you just don't even want to look at him, let alone love on him. It's like, but I want you to just love him like you've never loved him before for the next 30 days. And he's like, and trust me, he's going to be so sad that he let you go.
We're going to show him just what he's missing. And he likes his newspaper. I want you to bring him that newspaper and his coffee and give him a kiss on the forehead, give him a kiss and tell him have an amazing day. Like, I want him to know when it's over just how bad he messed up. But really, the pastor was what my teenagers say. He was finessing her. He was getting her to move in a direction, knowing what the outcome would be, even though she didn't see it that way, because she thought, yeah, I'm going to show him. You're right, Pastor.
So she did. She followed what he said, and for the next 30 days, she was consistent and just went above and beyond, doing all the things she knew he loved without respecting anything in return. She just wanted to show him what he would be missing out on. What she didn't expect was the husband's reaction to that. And at first, it was like she thought. He just took it for granted, was like,
didn't say thank you, nothing.
Yeah. There was no change for probably about a week, maybe 2 weeks, no change. But she kept on because he told her 30 days. So after about 2 weeks, he started to show some changes. And he started to do some of the things that she missed that he was doing.
Then he started to say thank you and give her a little kiss.
Yeah, I was going to say, with
and put his newspaper down and engage with her.
Yeah. He started to show more love. Like, he was giving her hugs and kisses and all the little things she had been missing. And so at the end of the 30 days, the pastor checked back in with her and said, so how did it go? Did you show him? Is he like, oh my God, he's never going to want to let you go? And she was like, yeah, it didn't go like I thought at all. She's like, I thought, he would just stay the same, nothing would change, and I would just leave. She goes, but no, we actually really reconnected, and we found that love that we had in the beginning.
And she said, I actually don't want to leave. Me. Because he's loving me the way that he used to.
The way I always wanted.
But he started loving her the way that he used to, because she started loving him the way she used to. And the law of reciprocity says you get what you give. So if you're not giving to your spouse, if you're not giving to your relationship, if you're not giving to yourself, you're not going to get anything back in return but some negativity.
So isn't this the crazy thing, is that when we're hurt, our natural reaction is to hurt back, to make them feel like we feel. But what actually works and what actually changes something is to do the opposite. So in those moments when you're hurt, you should actually be showing love. So this is where, in those moments, like when you see your spouse act out of character and they show you, like, maybe they spoke to you in a really rude way, but you stop in that moment and you show a loving response to that. And you check in and say, are you okay? And it totally changes their reaction, because they're not expecting that in the moment. They're mad, and misery loves company. So when we feel miserable or we're angry, we're trying to get the other person to feel what we're feeling. We want that. We're not expecting someone to respond in love. So when someone does respond in love, it changes us from being in that angry or hurt mentality to, oh, they care.
And by the way, some of you are sitting out there and you're saying, you two are so full of crap. And that's why individual growth is so important, because what Stephanie's talking about, you got to really understand your triggers and you got to have the ability to respond to them versus reacting negatively emotionally, which means you got to do some work on you to get to the point where you can have those kind of moments where you can step above that initial hurt or your spouse acting out of character and respond to them versus react to them.
Yeah, I challenge you guys the next time you're in that place where your spouse is, you can tell, having a hard moment. I want you to give them a hug, or I want you to ask them, are they okay? I want you to react opposite of how you want to react in that moment. I challenge you to try it and see what happens.
So how do you grow individually to get to this point? I was blessed that Stephanie loved me when I was unlovable, that Stephanie is a lot more patient and kind and loving, especially than I used to be in my early 20s when I was very reactive to some childhood traumas that I still needed to heal from and some negative experiences I needed to heal from. And Stephanie had hers too. The first thing you really got to do is be honest with yourself. You kind of got to take stock of your life and say, where do I need to grow the most? Where do I get triggered the most? Where do I react emotionally the most? Where do I get the most defensive? Where do I struggle with being able to respond to somebody coming at me in a negative way and maybe set a boundary there? Look at those triggers as an opportunity to figure out where you need to focus your attention at, because that's what those triggers really are. Ultimately, they're not something you push down or you run away from. They're an opportunity to put that mirror on yourself and say, hey, this is a great place for me to start in this journey of personal growth that I need to be on to become the best version of who I'm meant to be.
Yeah, I love that you just mentioned, it just made me think of recently I was triggered by someone close to me, and it kind of surprised
It
myself.
wasn't me,
No,
guys,
it
just so
wasn't
you know
Walt.
this
It
time.
wasn't Walt. It was a different
It's been me before, but it wasn't me this
it
time.
was a different family member. Um, and it kind of caught me off guard for myself because I thought I had grown more than that to where I wouldn't let that get to me. And I caught myself reacting and lashing out back at this person. But I did catch myself and think afterwards, like, see, this is the kind of stuff that you think that you've gotten to a place where you've outgrown it, and there's still work to do, and I still challenge myself to, I really played it back in my head and was like, next time, if this happens again, I'm going to react differently, and I'm not going to feed into what that person said to me. I'm going to just s- stop and say something different, something that would either make that person realize what they're doing in the moment or just let it be and walk away. And that's typically what I try to do. This is the growth I've had for myself, that in those moments, I will usually ignore what, like the rude comment being made, or change the subject, or I would leave. I have things that I usually work through to manage that situation. But this is the thing, guys. Even with growth, there's always going to be more continual growth, and you'll never fully, it's not like nothing's ever going to trigger you. All of us have triggers. We all are going to have them. What does change is you get better at your response. You get better at responding to those things and not letting it get you to such a negative place or turning into something way worse than it should be, because you learn how to control your emotions and you learn different ways to, you know, deal with the reaction. Like, because we all have a natural response, we want to just react.
Mm-hmm.
It takes intention and a lot of personal work to get to where you don't react in that way, to where you can take a second and respond how you want to respond and not in a, complete emotion, just react. So this is what I just want to point out. Like, when he says be honest with yourself, you really do in those moments have to ask yourself, you know, you know, you're going to learn the questions, like, afterwards ask yourself, like, well, what was that got me so worked up? Like,
Mhm.
what is it deep down that made me react? Because it's different for everybody because of
Mhm.
our experiences. There's reasons. There's a reason that that particular person saying what he said to me made me react the way I did, because I have unresolved things with that person that I don't know if they'll ever be actually completely dealt with, but partly because I can't control that person and I can't make them do the personal work, but I can. I cannot respond to them.
So you got to really be honest with yourself in those moments, like Stephanie was talking about. She knew she reacted in the moment, and but that's okay. Sometimes they got you. They got the reaction that they were looking for in the moment, or at least kind of the reaction they were
But
looking for.
honestly, don't you like now, like when you've done the work, I get mad at myself for that. Like, even though I should be, it's like, you should be mad at that person because why would they say that? But really, I get mad at myself because I'm like, I'm better than that. I'm not going to let that person do that to me.
Yeah, but it's not even getting mad. I think that's what most people do, which means you can't give yourself or the other person grace. It's getting excited. Like, man, okay, 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 I see you. I see you tried to get me, and you did emotion, because the emotion is the thing that you got to learn how to respond versus react to. Now I see an opportunity that I can continue to elevate who I am, and I can continue to be a stronger version of myself. Cool. I'm going to dig into this one and see what's happening here. So that next time I respond versus react. So stop looking at it like a negative, guys. Start looking at this thing like a positive and get excited about these opportunities that you get all the time when somebody's testing your patience, or somebody's making you mad or making you frustrated or whatever that is. And by the way, part of this doesn't mean that you put your relationship on the back burner while you're doing this, but your relationship deserves the best version of you, and you deserve to put this into your relationship.
But this is where I say, like, um, this is where we have to learn to focus on ourselves, because we tend to like in that situation, let's say it was us that got in a fight and I'm sitting there like, why did he do that? And like, I'm blaming you
Hmm.
when really I need to focus on, well, how could I have reacted better in that moment? How could I have changed that situation? Because I could have dealt with that better and maybe we wouldn't have had this fight or whatever it is. Like, cause this is what happens between spouses is we just play the blame game and we're just sitting there going, well, if he wouldn't have done that or she wouldn't have done this,
Hmm.
then we wouldn't be in this position. Well, no, because like if he would have come at me about something and I just fought back with him about it, well, I wasn't being any better than he was. So this is where we got to focus on ourselves. Like, how can I do better the next time I get into an argument with my spouse? And whether it's he or I that start it, how can I do better about that? Like, maybe I wouldn't have been in that situation if I would have done this, or maybe if I had reacted differently, it could have gone different.
Well, I think the only win in an argument is the team win.
Right.
No individuals ever win in an argument. The team slash marriage is the thing that wins in an argument. So even if you're arguing, it's an opportunity to figure out, one, why do I get so pissed off about this? What's really underneath that? And it might literally be your spouse, or it might be another experience, negative experience you had that's coming into your marriage in a negative way. And this is the second piece. So that first piece is be honest with yourself. You really got to have that honest conversation with you. Then, like Steph said, you got to work on you. At the end of the day, the only emotion you can control is your own. And even that's hard, right? Controlling your emotions really hard. But the only one you can control is yours. You can't control your spouse's or anybody else's around you. So the more equipped you make yourself through growth to control your own emotion, the healthier all your relationships are going to be. But I think you also need to be able to have a conversation with your spouse when you're in this phase of personal growth. Hey, I'm working on some things about me. So I might show up a little bit different and I'm challenging myself to be different. So if you see that, I don't want you to think something else is up other than the fact that I'm really digging in and I'm trying to make myself better.
Yeah. So I was going to say there was a point in our relationship. So at this time, like right before Walt and I had that come to Jesus moment, he told me, so we had come across this Love Dare book. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but there's a book called The Love Dare. And it's just like the story I just told you about with the pastor, where basically the concept is you change habits. You don't tell your spouse that you're going to do it. You actually just change these habits and you start doing things more focused on just you serving your spouse. And it's not about how your spouse responds or anything. It's about you serving them. And the idea is that in doing that, your spouse is going to come around and probably do the same because, like I said, it's cyclical. So once, usually that's how it would work. Reciprocity, you do it, then the other person will too. So Walt had actually tried to do this. He was doing the Love Dare, didn't tell me, just started to try to change things. And except he admitted later that he wasn't really doing it out of, the way you were supposed to.
Well,
That
half was like unselfish and
he
selfless,
started out that
and
way. I
half
think the intention was good.
was I wanted to like you to change too,
Right.
to move closer. And all it did was create a transactional relationship between the two of us because I really didn't have the purest intentions. I still had selfish, not totally selfless intentions in that. And I think that that's part of it. But Steph, because you said that, and I always believed in that part of the book, like you just do it. But I don't know. I don't know. We talk about communication and the radical conversations, and even when you're growing and when you're making changes, you can get your spouse on board with you. Even, let's say they don't right away, but in those moments, it's like when we were going through the workshop we just went through. One of the men in there said, one of the women was talking about her husband helps out a lot more. And he goes, well, I just decided, hey, I can get up and I'm going to make coffee anyway. I can make her a cup and she's working too. So I can help do some dishes at home. And I just started pitching it a little bit more. And it made me reflect on myself again, right? Because I'm always a work in progress. I need as much help as I could get, y'all, I'm telling you. But I had to be honest with myself in the moment. Tip one, right? Key one. And then I had to work on me, key two, and say, I don't really do enough of that stuff. You know what? Steph's really helping build this marriage business that we're building now, do the podcast, do those things. I'm not working a traditional job anymore. We're just working on the business now together. I could start doing a little bit more around the house. And I was inspired through listening to somebody else, which is why we have legacy driven marriages, even our Facebook group, because it gets you in the arena with other people to say, you know what? That's a good idea. I could probably do a little bit more of that. And I started doing that, but we talked about it. And I said, hey, I just did it for a couple of days and I let her know, hey, I'm doing this just because I'm trying to improve too. And I just really liked that he did that. And I thought I could do more also. I think that lets you know I was intentionally growing, but it also lets you know, hey, what the hell is Walt doing? What's he up to? Did he do something wrong? Are we going to go back to being transactional?
Well, this is how it's.
So communication's good, I think, when it comes to that.
So when I said that story, notice I said nothing changed for 2 weeks. Like her husband's response didn't change. He didn't, probably because the same reason that the Love Dare didn't work when Walt tried to do it is because I felt like he was doing it to make me change. Like I knew, I don't know, I just felt that it wasn't a pure intention. Like it wasn't him.
Well, you were in resentful mode and hurt mode, just like
Right.
I was.
Right. So I guess at that time, I didn't believe I didn't believe it would last. I didn't think that he was really doing it. I just thought, yeah, it was a selfish intention, actually. So the same thing, it's like, but notice she had to do that long enough to show him,
It was real.
yes, that this wasn't just something she was doing to make him change. And even it's funny how that works. It's like you have to see it long enough or do it long enough that it really becomes a real habit and you really do it. If you do it for the right intention, like you're really doing it to serve your spouse and you have no other intention, like I'm not doing this so he'll do it for me. I'm doing it because I just want to be better.
And the thing is, it will change your marriage and it will change your spouse in the best ways. But let's say some of you out there are thinking, my spouse still is not going to change. So worst case scenario for you, you build really healthy habits you're going to take into your next relationship. You got to do this work anyway. Why not do it for the sake of actually saving your marriage? More importantly, why not have that conversation with your spouse and let them know when you feel comfortable with it, here's what I'm kind of working on also, because they might take advantage of that and say, you know what? I need to work on something too. I just had a friend today. We just went out with some friends, a big group of friends we have. One of them was talking to me today about her own journey of personal growth. And I've seen this personal growth in her in the last couple of years. I mean, it's just been absolutely tremendous, right? It's like a 5-year journey for her though.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, from weight loss to just building her own self-confidence, building her own self-worth, to feeling like she's good enough to have the family that she has. I mean, just a beautiful hearted person that just needed some personal growth. So she actually came to her husband in a loving way and said, hey, I've really been working on this, but here's where I feel like there's still a wall there from some ways that I didn't show up in the marriage, and I want to work through those. Initially, he went to react and get defensive, but he's also done some work too. And he said, you know what? You're right. Right. Okay. I see you. And man, there's nothing better than feeling seen and heard in your relationship. But that's why you got to have the conversation. So it is about you. It is about being honest with yourself. It's about working on you and controlling your own self and improving you. But I just want to give you guys solid examples of how it bleeds over into your relationship. And I think the third thing we wanted to talk about today was it just takes time. Just spoke about it. Our friend, it's been like a 5-year journey. We've seen her the last couple of years go through this. There's no easy way. There's no magic pill. I know for Steph and I, the Love and Respect Conference was a catalyst to move our marriage forward pretty quickly, to really generate some momentum in the right direction. But it was still a year or two of healing and repairing feelings and rebuilding our relationship to get it to where it was at before we really went through that struggle. But all we did was show each other the level of commitment we had to our love. Because we showed each other that level of commitment we had to our love at 24 years married, 25 years, July 3rd, hey, quarter of a century of being together. Now our relationship is thriving and we love spending time together. And by the way, we spend more time together with each other now than we have in our entire relationship. And we're still having a blast, man.
I was gonna say when we went to that Love and Respect conference, that was the first conference we had ever been to after the low point in our marriage, and we said that was the catalyst that planted the seed that we needed to change. And I have to tell you guys, it was like I think it took about 7 years to really work through all the emotion of that. We still had we had some big blowout fights after that.
No
So it's
arguments.
not like everything was
We're
perfect after
healed.
that.
Yay,
Yeah.
baby. I love you forever.
It was not like that. It was not like that. It definitely, we left it with our eyes open, like, wow, there was light bulb moments that happened there. And we both left like, wow, I just have a really different perspective on all of this. And wow, we realized we need to do some individual work and we need to do some work in our marriage. Like, we just need to do some change. And we did move forward with that. And there was some really amazing moments in there too. But there were still some really hard moments and conversations where we had to really work through some hard stuff. And it was not an easy process by any means.
But isn't it the 3 key points that we're giving today? We had to be honest with ourselves and honest with each other about where we're at, about what we needed to do individually, where we needed to work on our marriage. Then we had to actually do the work, which started with ourselves and putting a mirror on ourselves and making sure that we controlled what we contributed to the relationship. That's all we could control at that point. Couldn't control what Steph did. She couldn't control me. And the last thing was understanding that the process took time. So removing the expectation of where you expect it to be in 6 months and a year and just saying, hey, the vision for our relationship is to be 1% better every day and continue to build a stronger bond.
Right. So we didn't walk away from that and think, yay, we're healed. We're just going to be great from here on out.
It wasn't like one of them Southern Baptists where they smack somebody in the forehead, you're healed, and they're like, oh, I'm healed. It wasn't one of those moments, that's for sure.
But it definitely felt like it gave us the hope and the realization that, hey, we can work through this. We can make this work. It's going to take a lot of effort on our part. It's going to take intention on our part. We do have to work through it. It is a process.
Yeah.
But we can get there. We can now see it. We didn't feel like we need to throw in the towel and we're done. Because you guys, I think the only way you fail is by quitting. That's the only way you fail. You only fail if you quit. You don't fail if you got to that really hard part and you have done some really bad things. You don't fail if you don't quit. As long as you make changes and you're aware and you realize that there's issues that need to be worked out and you work on them, you can't fail. You only improve, you grow, you learn, you get better.
Mm-hmm.
That's all anybody can ask of you. That's all we ask of each other in our marriage, is that we don't just throw in the towel. We don't just quit. We say, like, we can work on this, but it does take change. It does take effort. You can't get there without those things.
I love it. I love it. The worst thing you can do is be in the same place or worse next year because you weren't willing to get uncomfortable. Growth requires comfort. Steve Harvey said, if you want to remain mediocre, don't rock the boat. The boat needs to be rocked because you need to understand how you can stabilize where you're at on your journey, how you can grow on your journey, how you can be better, just 1% better every day. We're not talking about something overly profound. But the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And that's what personal growth is like. There's not a destination for you. The destination is your last breath on the face of this earth. You owe it to yourself to grow so that you can just find happy and joy that you're going to miss if you're not willing to do that. This is your opportunity right now to say, hey, I'm going to take this serious. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to start growing. I'm going to start doing the work, and I'm going to take stock of where I'm at a year from now. And I'm going to stand with my chin up and my chest out and be damn proud at how much work I was willing to be, because regret only lives in the places that you're not willing to take chances to make better. This is your wake-up call. This is your chance to be better. And this is your opportunity to create a thriving marriage. So look, guys, we appreciate you joining us today. Steph and I could talk for probably 10 hours about this dang episode. We just love it so much. But talk about growth. I want you right now, when we're done with this, not only to subscribe, ching, just like on the first round, I want you to commit to building a stronger marriage and stronger family by going to legacydrivenmarriages.com. Sign up for our weekly newsletter where we get even more tactical on the advice that we give you once a week so that you can continue to elevate where you're going and get the advice you need to be a power couple and create something damn legendary. But look, guys, until the next time,
get into the arena of your marriage, keep fighting for your relationship, and keep elevating your generational legacy. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Let's go.